Hi, welcome back to McCarthy Performance. Thought about it overnight. I am going to cut the Pontiac pistons. I have already set up the lathe and trimmed one. I'll show you how we're going to do it. I've got it on the granite stand for verification, and we're going to measure all the decks. They all are roughly from the skirt to the top. They're the same. Okay, the faceplate will be up against the bottom of the skirt. We'll put a dial indicator on it, make sure it's 0 at the top for, making sure it ain't this way on the faceplate. Should not be. The faceplate was cut on the lathe and both sides, and everything's pretty darn close to being true. Okay, we're going to check all them pistons. I did verify a few of them. I'm going to continue that and make sure that they all read the same. Basically set the cutter off of the deck of the piston at 0. I put a little marker on it and I just walk it back and forth and I go off of that. You can use a piece of paper too if you want. And then I'm going to cut them all. And the reason why I'm doing this is because I knew when I bought the pistons they were going to be poking out of the deck a little bit. I was all right with that because I couldn't find a piston the way I needed this piston to be. I need that 30 cc's. Now I'm cutting it. Grant you, I will be losing some of that, but I can get a gasket that's a little thicker that's going to put the compression where I want it to be. So that's what we got going on this. And as far as from the top of the piston to the ringland, we got 342 thousandths. I absolutely have no fear of taking some of that off. For a standard naturally aspirated engine, for that top ring to be that far down is perfectly fine. So they're going to be all right. For what we're doing. We'll get going on them. Thank you. This is what I'm going to use to do it. Faceplate, made it on the lathe. Just an old hardware eyelet. At least that's what I'm going to call it. Make sure you weld the end of it and close it. Got it ground so it slides through the piston easily. Everything's all set up. I'm going to measure off the bed with a dial indicator, magnetic base. We're going to read it and draw it towards the gauge. When it gets to the number I want, we'll stop, we'll check them, verify them. We might have to put them back on. It's going to be a process. It's going to take me a few hours to do it, but it's quicker than a custom, and I don't want to buy them a custom piston, so that's what we're going to do. We're shooting for about 10 thousandths off the top of the piston, so we'll get going on it. Can't run the piston perfectly on center of my backer plate because the eyelet is hanging up on one side of it. I might have to bore the hole out a little bit or widen it out because it necks down and it's hanging up in the hole. I'm running the lathe in low speed. I have no fear of anything slinging off or moving, but it is not running true on center, but won't matter as long as this cuts true. And it's just the center line of the pistons over a little bit. So we'll get rolling on it. We'll cut maybe a couple. It's going to be kind of a boring video, but somebody might get enjoyment out of it. Seems like every time I fire up one of my machines that spins something or mills something, usually people like to watch it. So here we go. We're on 0. This should be just a real light cut. have my master here, and this is going to be the one that I want to cut everything to, this piston. So I'm going to zero off my master. We'll call this my master anyways. We're 0. Says I've got 4 thousandths to still take off this piston. I'll get them fairly close, and if I get them within a thousandths of each other, or maybe 2, I can, because they're flat, I can take these on my faceplate or my surface plate and put some sandpaper on here and polish these up. I'll probably buff them just to get all the sharp edges off. It's quicker for me to do it that way. So we're going to take a little bit more off this piston. I will bring up one point. This is kind of a okay gauge. This is a Federal, and I wish I had 20 more of these because these are beautiful gauges, dial gauges. But you got to be careful with cheap ones, because when if they snap back, they can change a little bit. It racks them a little. At least that's what I call it. There's a opinion in here, and if it snaps back really hard, sometimes it rattles them and screws up the measurement. So you always gotta check, you know, up against your cutting piece and then your master to verify it. And according to the bottom of the piston, I can walk it back and forth, and it's relatively flat, within maybe a 1/2 thousandths, which is plenty flat enough, because they go in there with a small end mill, so there's track marks in there. But you know, if we can get them around 1 thousandths to 2 thousandths, that'd be great. And I can get them closer to the net if I want to lap them, and I very well could do that. So ultimately, you don't want to spend a whole day on a set of pistons when you can buy them, but there's not a hell of a lot going on right now. And if I cut all these and they all fall within a thousandths one way or the other of each other, I don't care. It'll be a good day for me. You know, as long as we end up with 8 usable pistons that are that close, I'll be happy. So we're going to take a little more off of this one, and then we'll have 2 down, and then we'll have a few more to go, hopefully, depending on how many times I got to remount them. But I think with the plunge gauge, that's going to cut down a lot of mounting and unmounting. I've got the master set. I know exactly where I want to be. So we'll get going on this one here. Well, I should have knew better than make a short video of my 100-year-old lathe, because yesterday she decided to give out on me. There's a thrust bushing on that thing that excessively loose. So for facing, did a couple pistons and I didn't have a problem, and then I started having a problem. So we're back to the mill, which is a pain in the butt, but it's pretty consistent. Now I know this vise really isn't made to do this, but I do it a lot on it. I've done probably more top chops, let's call it, than I do fly cutting with it. So I got the head trammed in. That's always fun. I got her pretty much flat across in this way. Everything's good. What I did to this vise, if you notice back here, I got a clamp holding the table down so it can't move. I've got a little spring underneath the tip of the skirt there to keep it from hopefully fluttering, or keep the harmonics down. As kind of I have a positive stop that I put in there, but that's a pain in the butt. So we're going to try this one with a spring. I've got 2 pieces of cardboard here clamping up against the piston, and basically you tap it, of course, till you get it to 0. I would like to make a receiver for my ringland grooves and make it adjustable here so I can hold it, but what really needs to be done on this vise is it needs something here. So I'll probably make something for that vise. You know, if I flip a piston backwards, and I think I've showed you this before, you can see it on my other videos, but if I flip a piston backwards in that vise and I need to get into the underside, I made up these, and these bolt on here, and then the pin fits in here. I have them turned down for a small block right now, but this side is big block. Obviously, I got to drill and tap it. So, and basically, let's be realistic. Most everything's a 990 or a 927 pin when you buy it aftermarket, and it really don't matter whose piston it is. Of course, that's really easy to machine down. So I've got my cutter head off of it right now. I'm going through and I'm sharpening up all the cutters. Now, I've got a shell mill, and really you could do it with a single point, but this is what I have. This is what I'm going to use. I've done it this way before. I'm going to sand these a little bit and deburr them, and we'll get to that. But right now I'm cleaning up the carbide on the shell mill and getting it as sharp as I can. And the way I check that is with the back side. You use your fingernail, you go in there with your fingernail, and if you can scratch it, it's fairly sharp, and that's how I check it. If you got really good eyes, you can see if it's wore, but my eyes aren't as good as they used to be. So we'll get on with this. Yeah, I said when I put a piston in backwards, what I meant is upside down. My brain is still trying to warm up. It usually takes a few hours, seems a little longer than it used to be, but what can I say? But yeah, so if I got to get inside the bottom of a piston, that's what I use, because of course obviously it goes through the piston and I can't get around the pin that holds the piston. So we'll continue with this video. I'll try to engage my brain before I open up my mouth, but some days that's pretty hard to do. So okay, the paper trick is a good way to check it, to see how close you are. We're within a couple thousandths. The paper is about that thick. So we're just going to slide it in there like that, spin it a little bit, make sure that nothing's hanging up. But usually I'll do an audible, an audible cut, and then I'll back it off a little bit and then make a light cut. I'm taking a fair amount off these pistons, so you can do the paper trick, that works, but a lot of times I'll just put a little marker on it and lightly touch off on it, and then if it looks like it's too heavy, I'll back it off until I just do a real light cut, and then I'll put it at 0. So we'll get going on these pistons. I've got 4 more to do, so we'll get at it. Every time I take a piston off and put a new piston on, I indicate it. And that's why I was really hoping for the lathe to work, but the end thrust is way too much on it, and loading and unloading of the cuts, it's just a no-go. I'm probably going to do some work on that lathe this winter and fix it up. Cutting is all right. Facing is a whole different thing. So if we have to, I shim it with just art paper, cardboard, whatever you want to call it. Right now, you probably can't see it really well, but I'm going to get you over here. Okay, now it's reading 0. And then we'll crank it. See if it'll jump up the curb there without hurting anything, the setup. So it's 0. This mill, I almost said lathe, this mill is an old mill. It's a good mill. I mean, it hasn't been beat to hell and back, but it's cutting a little bit shallow on this side. Not a lot, about a thou and a half. And when you move the table, of course, you move into either a non-wear or a surface that is worn. So, you know, what I'm doing is I'm starting the cutter over here. And I'm coming in on the axis of the pin that I've got in the pin vise that's holding the piston. And that'll keep the piston from doing this. Once I go in and establish most of this, because I'm going to be up on this pad, and I'm going to be just cutting a little bit of this, I can walk it out, and it cuts down on, I believe, a little bit of the rocking. Like I said, it doesn't flop around 2000s, but it does. There's not a real good positive stop on this side of the piston, and there needs to be. And I'll be working on that, I'm sure, this fall, when maybe I get some time and maybe come up with something to keep it from doing that. I got a positive stop, but it's too hard to get in there. I'll probably make up a thumb screw or something. But anyways, we'll get going on them. And this is the last one to cut. So thank God. Okay, we're going to start cutting on the piston. This will may make contact over here. Like I said, there is a little step off here, and what I'm doing is I'm coming in on this way, and I'm taking most of the piston material off. And once I get to a point where I only got to take a couple thousandths off, I verify it all the way through the punch gauge, and then if I have to, I'll add a thou and a half or 2 thousandths, and I'll just go one across of the piston side of the piston. This is going to be this side. It's cutting right on, and what that's going to do is that's going to even out the piston, because it doesn't. There won't be a sharp step off here. It feathers right out because there's a little bit of wear in the mill, and they always make sure your knee vise. The knee is locked up tight. I've got that locked. You want to make sure that your quill is locked up. You always want to. I always mill with the quill all the way up in the head. So we're gonna come in on an angle, and what helps a lot is gloves, and it's not so much for the chips. Cuts down the friction on the handles, and when you're running a machine manually, it really helps a lot. So here we go. Okay, I'm only taking 3 thousandths a cut. I don't want to, it's not that solid of a hold, and I don't want to have things go sideways. This way, probably more like 1.5 on that one. There's a little bit of drop in the knee. So I'll finish up on this last piston. They're all very close. I can show you where we're at on them. They're within 0.02 of each other. I think maybe less. Sorry about the finger. There's one thousandths before zero. So, well, the other one will come out fine, and I'll sand them and deburr them. And well, thanks for watching, and hope you learned something and enjoyed the video. Please. So we got this one done. Probably do a little sandpaper on it. It's got a little step off on it, maybe a tenth, maybe a thou, right about there. Well, it's not quite a thou. Close enough for the top of a piston.